All right, let's take a look at the complete buyer process when you're purchasing a home. So once we find that home that you want to call your forever home, or at least your 5 to 10 year home, whatever it might be, obviously we got to make the offer. So within the contract, you're going to see purchase price, down payment, any concessions that we're asking for from the seller. You're going to have timelines on the inspection. You're going to have escrow deposit. Everything's going to be spelled out there. You're going to know exactly what you're going to be paying for the house, what you have to come up with a down payment. Everything's going to be spelled out there. So once we put the offer together, we start building it out and we put an acceptance date. So as we make the offer, if it's the 1st of January, for example, New Year's Day, we're going to say that, okay, you've got 24 hours, you've got 2 days, whatever it might be to accept the offer. A lot of it depends on weekends, holidays, type of seller. If it's a corporate seller, they typically want a little longer time period to review the offers. Um, we put the contract together and get it submitted. Assuming that it's accepted, that starts your timetable. So if we go in on the 1st, it gets accepted the same day. That's going to start your window, right? Your time window. So within 3 business days, you've got to have your escrow deposit in. That's usually 1% of the purchase price. That's going to just sit at the title company until you close. Once you get to the closing table, it's going to flow wherever it needs to go, down payment, closing, what have you. The other time that's going to start right away too is your inspection period. The contract defaults to 15 days, but generally speaking, we're going to write it up for 5 to 7 days. So within that time frame, we've got to get the inspectors out there. They're going to do a complete inspection of the home. What you're looking for is going to be your 4-point inspection. That's going to cover the major items of the house: roof, electric, plumbing. Kind of the big items is what the insurance company is going to want to see. How old are they? What kind of condition are they in? That's going to enable you to bind insurance on the property. Your home inspector is going to give you about an 80-page list of honeydews, and we're not really worried about those unless there's some kind of safety concern. What we want to see is what's on that 4-point inspection. Are we able to bind insurance? If needed, we can negotiate repairs, and the seller can do the repairs, or they can opt to not do the repairs, and then the contract falls apart. Generally speaking, they're going to do the repairs because if you're using financing, your your 4-point inspection, you have to get insurance to have the financing. They're going to severely limit their pool of buyers if they're not accepting anybody that has a financing or a mortgage, contract in place. So generally speaking, they're going to take care of those 4-point items. We'll negotiate that, get it set up. Once we get past the inspection period, and another important thing to remember during the inspection period is you can back out for any reason. So if you go there at night and there's like a motorcycle gang roaming the neighborhood, you can cancel the contract. You don't have to explain why. You just cancel it within the inspection period. Once we're through the inspection period, we're going to order the appraisal. Appraisals generally take 7 to 14 days, just depending on how backed up they are. Um, there's no assigned appraiser, so the mortgage company can't say we want to use Joe Smith. They basically sit in a bucket as they put the order in. It gets randomly assigned out. The appraiser comes out within that 7 to 14 day window. Usually it's around 10 days, and then we get the number back of what they say the home is worth. Within this time period, this is another portion that protects your escrow deposit. If the house was listed at 400 and that's the offer we made, and it comes back at 390, there's a couple choices. You as the buyer can come up with the cash to cover the gap. The seller can come down to the appraisal number. The two parties can meet somewhere in the middle, or either party can walk away from it. You're protected by the contract in your financing clause where it states clearly if the value is not there, the bank's not going to loan on it. A mortgage company, what have you. They're not going to loan on it. So that's a place where you can get out of the contract if the seller's not willing to negotiate and come down to the appraisal number, or we can't find something in the middle. Now, once we get past the appraisal, you're going to want to start shopping for insurance. You don't have to pay it right now. It gets paid at closing, but you have to have it in place so that it's ready to go the day that you take possession of the home. If for some reason between that once the appraisal comes back and it's good and we're waiting on closing, if you walk away from the house for some reason, there's really not an out. The seller's going to keep your escrow deposit. All right. You're protected during the inspection and then the appraisal if the numbers are off. Uh, Once we get past the insurance, the last thing we really do is the final walkthrough. So the day prior or the day of, depending what time closing is, we'll go out there, we'll physically inspect the property, make sure there's no damage, make sure there's not a bunch of crap left behind, what have you. And then we move forward with closing. At closing, a day or two prior is when you're going to want to wire the money. They're going to give you clear wiring instructions so you can give that to your bank, get the money wired over that you're going to need for closing. That's going to consist of your down payment as well as your closing costs. Then we hit the closing table. You'll sign a bunch of paperwork. Everything's electronic, but it's all still a lot of paperwork. You're going to sign, and then we turn the keys over. Congrats, you're a homeowner.